Good day, fashion friends. This, I think, is just going to be a quickie little tutorial, and it's going to be fun. So I found this old school Star Wars panel that was probably cut from a curtain at an estate sale the other day, and I thought this would be cool, even though it's long, put it on the front and wrap it around the back. And then the next day I went to an estate sale and I found this blue sweatshirt in an extra large, which is the perfect size because that's kind of a large little patch to put on. And I also happen to have on hand this tapestry that I bought that has stars on it. So I'm going to use this to either add or replace the sleeves, something like that, like what you've seen in my previous tutorials. So let's get started and let's make an old school upcycled Star Wars sweatshirt. Okay, now, confession time. I did not notice this because the estate sale was dark, but as you can see, there is a few little stains. Fortunately, after I put this over here, it's going to cover most of them. I can't move it up to cover these ones because then it will be up under the arm too far. Maybe I can trim it, I don't know, but we're gonna cover those. And there's a little bit over there. I'm gonna cut that out, so I'm not even worried about the ones on the sleeve. But I felt it was a great contrasting color to go with the stars and the Star Wars theme. All right, basically I just pinned it on as it was. It's going to wrap around under the arm, which I think is pretty cool. And I am simply just going to zigzag stitch all the way around. Okay, all stitched on, easy peasy. Now we're gonna work on the sleeves. Okay, and now we have a pattern for this sleeve. So one thing you want to pay attention to, you want to take your pattern that you need and you're going to turn it inside out because you need to allow for your seam allowance. Then you are going to fold this material. So you're going to have the fold of your sleeve meet up with the fold of the material. Also, you want to cut just a little extra, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so, to allow for seam allowance on each side. Next, I'm going to flip this inside out and stitch up this open end. Now, as in the previous video, you want your seam to be on the bottom, so you want to match that up, so that's what that's going to look like. So you want to always make sure you have your right sides together. So I'm going to turn this way, and we want the big end to be on this side. So you take this part, whoops, I gotta go this way, make sure my seam is on the bottom. So remember, you want your big end to match up. And you also want to make sure that this seam and this seam match up. And you're going to pin this or clip it into place. I usually clip it. And then straight stitch all the way around with 1/4 inch. Now, given as you can see that this material wants to fray, once I sewed my straight seam, I'm going to go back around and do an overlock stitch to prevent that from fraying and falling apart. All right, let's see what it looks like now that we have it all stitched on. And I think that's kind of cool. I think it goes with the vibe. Now to stitch on the other sleeve, we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We want our right sides together. So you're going to turn one inside out, seam and seam, and pull this through. Match up your seam, match it up all the way around, pin and stitch. All right, one sleeve complete. Now it's time to do the other one. Now, I do recommend that you do one sleeve at a time, so that way you don't get your pieces mixed up, and especially if you're doing random, like I sometimes do. So like I'll do one further up, one further down. I don't really always measure the pieces. I just kind of like whatever looks good. Or in this case, I was trying to cut out a section that had stains on it. So I did go a little bit further, although this does look pretty normal as to a section that I would cut out. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And I usually try not to do them even because then I don't have to worry about it. Now this one, I think I am going to do evenly. Unless I do like a bigger chunk on the other side and then just do like a partial chunk over here. I like an asymmetrical look. I think it just adds a little more personality or character to a piece. Now I'm sure you can see right there on the upper arm on the front, I do have some stains that I need to make sure that I cut out. And I want to say there's a few there, but they're not as bad. So I'm probably going to cut from here to about here. So it is going to be uneven. Or you can measure out from your seams and use your already cut out piece as the section that you need. And I don't know, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just do a little longer piece. Not sure yet. I just kind of let the pieces speak to me, and I try not to overthink it. I've been in a bad habit in the past of doing that. So I try not to overthink it, and I just kind of like go with what I feel, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Okay, so as you can see, I measured on the other side, it's 5.5 inches. So if I go to 5.5 inches, you can see there's going to be a little spot that's not going to be cut out. So I'm going to come up a little further, and I'm just going to cut a larger piece. Again, to do the asymmetrical look, to make sure that I get these stains removed out of the section. And here we are with the final product. Like I said, one sleeve is a little more than the other, but that's okay. And then the piece goes all the way around.